beyond the fun, like when it came to making your characters, did you base them off of other characters you liked? Was it, people in your life? So there are four protagonists in the book, two main ones.
Yeah.
So where did they come from?
Um, I I mean, I wanted to have a strong female character, and I hope I got that across in the book, where Anya like doesn't take any crap. Like she's sort of got the plans. She's under control. Like she knows what's up. And Jago, the guy, like he's a little bit more like I'm just gonna see what happens or whatever, you know.
Well,
And he's my personality for sure. Like I am the kind of guy that I'm just gonna do this thing and maybe it'll work out, and if not, I'll figure out how to make it work when the time crunch comes. But Anya's got a plan, and they aren't necessarily based off. Well, Jago's based off me, really, I guess. But the others aren't really based off anyone in particular. Sorry, I'm looking at the book. You can't see that I'm looking over at my copy, right? It's like, I need to look at that to talk about it.
for sure.
Yeah, and so they aren't based on anyone in particular, but just sort of that kind of. I wanted that dynamic because usually, I say usually, but maybe that's not right. But it feels like it's commonly the other way around. Like the guy knows what's going on, and the girl has to oh you're so great and save me and whatever. And I tried to sort of flip that a little bit and make it so that they're both competent people, but usually she's got to pull his butt out of the fire.
Yeah.
So yeah. And so that's where I wanted to go with that. And then the second two that come along, which I just sort of wanted to have distinctiveness with them, like to differentiate. And their characters, everyone sort of gets fleshed out a little more in Volume 2. They each get their own little 3 or 4 page, like, this is where I came from, section. And interweaved in the story. I hopefully did it naturally enough that it's not like, oh, great. Here's 3 pages that aren't connected to the story at all. But, or whatever, but they are. Yeah, I'm rambling now, so I'll stop.
No, please, you know what? I find the best thoughts, the best words come out when you ramble. I do definitely think that it happened naturally. Like, it never hit a point where I was like, oh, this is weird and random, who's this person? Like, you did a good job, so please, ramble.
Oh, yeah. Oh, good. Thanks. Yeah, and so there's not too many there's no new protagonists in the second book. Just sort of live with these people for a bit more. And you get a bit more of a resolution to the bit of near the end of the first book.
Okay.
You figure out why that guy does what he does, and I'm actually quite pleased with the second volume as much as I am with the first. And if you're looking at like the first panel of this book to the last panel of that book, if you go from the first panel of Volume 1 to what'll be the last panel of Volume 2, then you'll really see that.
It's gonna be a big one. Perfect.
Like the difference in most artists, I find talking to people are like, oh, like my art sucks and thanks for buying my thing even though I'm terrible. In this instance, I can actually be like, yeah, like from page 1 in 2016 to page 200 in 2020, like it gets way better.
For sure, yeah. And I mean, one of my favorite questions, I think I've asked every artist, how much did you learn from, I guess I'll say issue to issue, because you started out as issues. How much did you learn about drawing in general, but also like paneling and making comics from, your first original 3, now you're working on your second volume, or actually finishing it up fairly soon, it sounds of it. How much have you learned between issues and also as like a whole project over the last 4 or 5 years?
Oh, an unbelievable amount of things I've learned. Um, just um, like from things as simple as like having the page turn be the reveal of your thing. Like you don't put something cool at the middle of the right hand page. You put that cool thing at the top of the left hand page for when you turn over that page. Like, oh my god!
Right there.
Yeah, things like that, and things like especially I spent a month trying to get Kindle to accept my PDF file, because what I had was, as you can see, like the book, almost every page is like has the border on it, right?
Yeah.
And I had that border in white.
Okay.
On paper. And it kept rejecting my book because it's like, oh, you've got white at your edge and you don't want that because you're doing a full edge bleed or whatever. And so I'm like, okay. So I learned to put gray. All my borders in this book are actually gray, just off white.
Yeah.
And so I learned that. But through that, I learned for the second volume especially, and then I picked up Joyride by Marcus Toe is the artist, anyways, and Boom Studios. And just looking at their panel layouts, and then like, oh yeah, like that's cool. And then going back and looking at like other books of mine, like The Flash, where Francis Manifold did so much of the work on that book, and like Hush and the stuff by Jim Lee, like the New 52 Justice League.
Yeah, good book.
And like really like panels don't always, like pages aren't always contained in panels. Like they go past the edges of the panels, and you can create sort of a 3D-ish effect by having this part be over the edge of the panel when this part is behind the edge of the panel. And like that's something I really learned a lot about. And then going to digital for the inking and the coloring. Mm-hmm. That was a whole nother learning curve. And like, okay, like I don't want to have to use like 18 different shades of red to shade this outfit. Like, how do I do this? And that's, YouTube comes in really handy. And turns out that all the comic book artists being off work from the pandemic, like they got nothing better to do. They're putting up tutorials. So like Francis Manifold had a whole tutorial about how he does his highlights and his shading using layer masks and stuff. I was like, oh, like that just like sent me from like this level to this level on how good this looks based on how I would have done it before. So that's been ridiculously helpful, and I've learned a lot doing that sort of thing.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, YouTube Academy, it's fantastic.
Right? It's so good.
Yeah. Now, so for the people out there watching, how can they get your book? What's the main way? And how can they find you?
Yeah, okay. You can get your own copy of Omega Squad Volume 1, Trial by Fire, on Amazon. .ca, .com. I think it's like .jp, like Japan and India and whatever Amazon you use, you can get it. If you search for Omega Squad, there's more than one book called Omega Squad. Who knew? But if you put in the full title, you'll get my book for sure. But if you search for Omega Squad, my book's on the list. In Canada, it's $12.99, and then whatever Amazon charges for shipping.
Yeah.
If you're in the U.S., $9.99. Or you can find me on Instagram. So Chris_Barnes_art on Instagram. If you contact me directly, I can send you a book, and it'll have like a signature on the front, and much like that one, or maybe there'll be a drawing inside. Who knows?
Who knows?
Probably. It's fun to do that. And yeah, so on Instagram, and I'm on Facebook too. So facebook.com/ChrisBarnesArt without the underscores, and basically the Facebook page gets its feed from Instagram.
Okay, yeah,
But,
you've linked them. Yeah.
Yeah, you can see new stuff I'm drawing. Little snippets from Volume 2 are on there. There are some returning characters, as has been posted on my Instagram. You get sort of little sketches of the thumbnails. I'll take pictures of that. So that's where you can find the book and me.
Beautiful. And if all the good behind-the-scenes stuff. Now, when it comes to Volume 2, you're nearly complete, or is it like just finishing touches? Where are we in progress?
Where are we in progress? So Volume 2 is set out as 100 pages again. So Volume 1 ended up being 97. I cut a couple things out of the... If you're lucky enough to own the 12-pager photocopy versions, you have extra content that is not in the main one, because I didn't think it was written very well, and so I took it out. So this book it's better by subtraction. So it would have been 100 pages, but this one is 100 pages for sure. And so the first 40 pages are completely finished.
Oh, beautiful.
Word balloons and everything, because what I was doing was, pencils, and then do all the ink, and then do all the coloring, and do the words, and I did that for the first 20 pages, and I did that for the second 20 pages, and it was my plan to do that on the third 20 pages, but then my the pen that goes with this tablet,
your nib,
the little nub, yeah, you saw that.
I saw it on Instagram. Yep.
The nib is coming off, so I have to order a new pen. So the delivery date for that pen is anywhere between today and a month from now. So we'll see. So, but in the meantime, I've just kept on penciling. So the third, it still are issues, I guess. The third issue and the fourth are completely penciled, and the fifth, so like page 80, we're done pencils up to on page 85.
Wow.
So 15 pages to go.
Wow.
To pencil, and the book is penciled.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my plan was to have it out in time for Christmas, but it might be sort of like in time to spend your Christmas money on.
That's not bad. I mean, you've got what, 2.5 months. The way you're trucking along, you just might get it done. You never know. It depends on the nib.
It does a little bit depends on when that comes, because that might I'll throw a monkey into the wrench there if I can't if I don't get that in time. But I think I can do word balloons over the pencils, and then keep those layers separate or something. Like, I'll find a way to keep on working on it, because I do want to get it out. Because I think it looks cool. Like I'll show you something. I brought it up here with me.
I would love that.
Here's a look into the background of how this all happens, which I'm sure other people have shown, and probably better. But can you even see that?
Yeah.
This is like notes. So this is how I write.
Oh, cool.
I'll start with page 1. So like I just get a credit card and like draw the box.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, how am I going to make this page look? And I sort of do like little thumbnail layouts, and then the dialogue gets written beside.
Yeah.
So sometimes dialogue changes between here and the end because I can't read it. And then,
yep, I know that feeling.
And then you get to pages. Here's a good one. You get to pages like this.
Whoa, very cool.
Yeah, I like this.
Right on.
So this has been in the last act of book 2. This happens.
Big spoilers.
And
I love it.
But you can't see them because they're added later. Yeah, and so it's really fun. It's funny because I was explaining to one of my kids earlier, like he was like getting stuck on his homework, and he's like, I don't know how to start. I was like, you just start by starting. And so I wrote out. So during the pandemic, we have a baby too at home.
Oh, congratulations!
She's asleep. Thanks. And so I finished book 1. I was like, okay, book 2 is going to happen, and I just take her on a walk, and spin the
gets
wheels,
clicking away.
right? And then I would just text myself, voice to text, and I'm like, this happens in the first 20 pages of this, and I wrote it all out. I had an outline, and then so that outline lasted for like 2.5 books, and then I okay, we're rewriting this part. Okay, now we got to rewrite this part, and then we'll rewrite this part too. And then I drew like the 3rd book and the 4th book. I'm like, okay, like now I got to rewrite the 5th book because none of this works anymore. So there's a bit of a process to the whole thing. But yeah, we're almost done. We're getting there. Hopefully by Christmas.
That's awesome. Now, I did want to ask, I mean, we're literally in the middle of a pandemic. You've just moved. I don't imagine you have like a full-time job, like a regular job, so to speak, or are you actually doing this on top of working an 8-hour job?
So now I am working again. So because I was in care, I was like that's sort of what happened with the slowdown on the book was working, obviously.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah. And so I went to the first day of March break. I worked, and then that was it. I was off until the first week of September. And so I was trucking along really well with volume 2 there, and then now I'm working 8 hours a day again, which is great. Like I'm very happy.
Yeah, like it's positive. It slows the progress, but hey, money is amazing.
Yeah, it slows down my hobbies a little. It gets in the way of what I want to do. But no, my job is great, and I'm super blessed to be in a field where I get to be creative, even if it's not drawing comic books. And so it's, and then also in a field where like, oh, I'm going to move 2 provinces over, and I've got a job. Yay. So that's also pretty.
Congratulations. That is, it's very relieving because I can imagine a big move like that anytime would be like, oh my God, it's a big deal. But the stress about the job as well. I'm glad to hear you've been able to fairly easy from the sounds of it get a job. So we know you're safe, you're secure, you're good there, and you're still able to work on your book. So kudos to you, my man.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Yeah. It's a very interesting kind of year, obviously, for everyone, and everyone is feeling different stress at different times about different things, and so it's nice to, and I mean, I hope the best for everybody, obviously, but it's nice to be able to, like, I can work and I can do this. So, yeah. So now it's on top of work. For the first. That's why the first 40 pages came out and finished so quickly, because they happened when I wasn't working.
Yeah, absolutely.
The second volume.
Yeah, and as mentioned earlier, you're waiting for your pen so you can do your coloring and stuff like that. So your first few issues of the original book, Volume 1, you were doing the lettering by hand, and then later came back and did them in digital, or did you hold off on letter bubbles?
No, so I did it differently between the photocopy version and the paper, the real version.
The collected edition.
There you go, collected, the ultimate edition. So I never did the lettering by hand because no one would be able to read it. They might read the first line or two, and then I'd get lazy, and then it would look like crap. So what I did in the first few issues was I found a font like for free that was word balloons.
Ah, right on.
And so in Photoshop I'd have the page, and I'd use those, like, capital D is this balloon that I want, so I'll do that, and then I would stretch it out to sort of kind of fit what I wanted. Do the writing, and have to figure out how to make it all fit inside the word balloon. And you can see, and so that's something I really did learn. I'm friends with Jason Lapidus and Chris Sanigan,
who we had on
Group
the
of
show
7
earlier.
comic. Yeah, they're super amazing guys. I say I'm their friend. We've met a few times. I hope I'm their friend. I talk to Jason and pick his brain once in a while about how to do certain things, because their book is amazing. If you haven't read Group of 7, like, read it. It's a good book.
Shout out. We'll put it up.
Yeah. And so I was doing word balloons this sort of chimera way. Like, here's a word balloon that's a font and it's its own size, and then I was putting in stuff, and then I used sorry, I got an eyelash in my eye. Comic Life.
Okay, yeah.
There's another. Yeah, and so I could make the word balloons in it, and and then port that over to Photoshop and stretch it out to sort of fit. And as you can see in the book, that kind of shows. It doesn't show often, but it shows often enough that I notice it, at least, where some of the bigger word balloons, like, they have jaggy edges and stuff.
Yeah, they started to pixelate there just a little bit.
Yeah, and you can see, like here, like, the big flash from Photoshop is clean, but the word balloons are not, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, there's got to be, like, how do they do this that I don't have to, like, use two programs and copy and paste back and forth and stuff. And so I picked Jason's brain about how because he said he redid all his word balloons for their collected edition too. And he's like, oh, well, you do it like this. I'm like, oh, well, that's way easier.
Yep.
And so I'm actually super impressed with the word balloons in the second volume too.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's fabulous. I mean, Chris, that's fabulous.
Yeah, thanks.
I definitely think, like, the level of ingenuity that comic creators in particular have had to come up with, and the ways of working around problems that you guys all have managed to find and share with each other is brilliant. And yeah, I think one thing is the comics community, like you said, you're friends with Jason Lapidus, and he's shared some information with you. Overall, how have you found your interactions with the comic community?
Oh, unbelievable! It's super great. So my life in the comic community. I lived in Belleville, I lived in Campbellford for a while, almost a year, and I happened to be there at the same time as Trevor was putting on the Toy-Con for the first time. Quinty Toy-Con. And so I'm like, it was $20 for a table at the time because it was his first show. And I'm like, I've spent $20 on worse than this. So I contacted him, and I think I was the only artist at that show. And I was like, these are my people. These are pop culture people. Like, I'll draw He-Man, and I'll draw this and that. And I made, like, double my table money. And I was like, this is awesome. I made $40 selling art. And so it might be difficult to get back there now, but I'm hoping.
Yeah.
I hope not to miss it. But I was at every one of his shows. And then from there, I did a few conventions in Oshawa. Nothing, like, I didn't go to Fan Expo or anything like that. I didn't have that kind of confidence to lay down $600 on a table.
I was going to say that, and the money of it too. Yeah, that it is a pricey con to go to as an exhibitor.
Yeah, this year I was going to go to Cape in Cornwall as sort of a bigger show, because it seems to me that's kind of a big deal out there, and it got canceled, of course.
Welcome to COVID.
Sadly. Yeah, exactly. So that was going to be my sort of foray into more expensive table, but more higher profile kind of show. Mm-hmm. Not that Trevor shows aren't high profile. They're Toy Cons, though. And if you're looking for retro toys, go to a Toy Con that's put on by Trevor. But yeah, as far as comic shows go, that would have been my big one. So Halifax has one when they have them again. So I'll be there.
Do you know the name of it as of yet?
I don't. I'm assuming it's just like the Halifax Toy Con or Comic Con.
Probably,
but,
yeah. We'll pull it up and we'll have it somewhere down there for the people to see.
Yeah, I'm assuming they have one. It's a city of 400,000 people or something. So I mean, they must have a comic convention.
They have a con. They must. If not, you get one started, you'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. I tried that. In Peterborough. I had one. Shoot. It's late. I'm blanking on things now.
All good. Take your time.
Comic Art Festival. The Peterborough Comic Art Festival. Like they do in Oshawa and Toronto and stuff. And I tried to put that on at the library. And that's actually how I sort of became friends with Jason and Chris, because they came all the way from Guelph, I think is where they're from.
Yep.
To be there.
Wow.
And like
awesome.
no people came to my comic show because the library didn't really help me out by advertising. But yeah, it's kind of a bummer. But I met them, and I people got to have an experience that were there, and we put on panels. I thought, like, a lot of these smaller conventions don't have panels or anything. We're gonna have panels, and so we had like a drawing panel and a writing panel and everything. It was cool. So yeah, but if there isn't a comic show in Halifax, there will be one.
That's the attitude. I love it. And yeah, I mean, it's got to start somewhere, right?
Right? Exactly. You got to start somewhere, no matter what you're doing. Because if you don't start, you'll never know.
If you don't start, you don't get this.
Right? Exactly.
Absolutely. Wow, that's fantastic. And I messaged you earlier, but if someone wanted to get a physical copy from your now local area, where would be the best spot or spots?
Oh, so Strange Adventures in Halifax is down by the water. They've got a couple copies. I've been in contact with their Dartmouth store, and so far they're the only people that have given me a response. But I just moved here, so I get it. And I haven't really been in touch with people more than once. So,
yeah.
Anyway, I went down to Strange Adventures, and they're like, hey, I have this book. And they're like, we'll buy a few. And now they're on the shelf. Wow. And super cool store. I'll give them a little plug. It's sort of like, it's that comic book store that you want to go in. Like, there's comics, lots of comics, independent comics, big name comics, all that jazz. Independent enough that I put my comic on the shelf. They've got a local. I saw it on their Instagram. There's a young man here. I think he's like less than 10 or something, and he draws his own comic, and they have it on their shelf at that store, and I think that's super awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they've got all the collectibles, and their store's got a whole bunch of character on the inside and the outside. Strange Adventures, Halifax.
Beautiful. And like you said, they've got a few locations, but yours, one with your books in it, is the Halifax location.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
That's beautiful. And, I mean, I appreciate it's mid-COVID. Maybe this is not a great question right now. Clearly, they had a good reaction to you. They bought a couple copies of your book. Have you had any sort of interaction with the comics community out there outside of that store?
Like, since the book?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, no.
I mean, yeah.
Other than the people I know of, right? Like the guy, Jerome, he's got 2 books on Amazon, and we are sort of cheerleaders for each other. He thinks it's great. There's a store, Need a Hero Comics in Belleville. I meant to stop in Belleville on my drive from Peterborough to Halifax, and I didn't have time. There's a guy there, Chris. He like ate up all the individual issues. I got to send a book over to that store. So if you're in the Belleville area, there will be Omega Squad there soon. Yeah.
Beautiful. So there will be many ways for people to get your books. I do appreciate it. I've had you for we're at about an hour now. I have I believe a few more questions. Is that okay, or do you need to go?
Sure. I got time for a couple more.
Beautiful. Okay. So for volume 2, you've given us a couple behind the scenes shots there. I don't want to get any spoilers going. But will there be as much references to stuff from pop culture in the second book, or are you sort of more plowing your own path now?
I would say there's a couple. I said that so earlier. I said I didn't introduce any new sort of hero characters. and that is not exactly accurate.
Okay.
And the two hero characters that do get introduced, people will recognize, and they are recurring fairly heavily in this series. And there, if you are a fan of sort of science-y shows where you find out if something is a myth or not, you may recognize them.
Awesome.
So there's that, and there's it's more. Some of the references are more dialogue based than picture based, I guess, because I've sort of, there's some background things like. Most of the references in the first volume are background stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, aside from, Bert and Ernie. They're pretty foreground.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So there's a few background things. Those two guys are in this book. And there is, like I say, a bit of dialogue things. And then there are a couple other items that get used a bit more that are pop culture related.
Very cool.
Yeah, there's enough Easter eggs to keep you looking.
Awesome. Well, I do definitely look forward to it because, it's you've brought such a passion to the books and as a product to be able to read it. It's great. And I definitely look forward to Volume 2. Will you be releasing Volume 2 as just like a volume, or will there be comics of it out there?
I haven't decided on that yet. I guess my vision is to release it as a volume. And I think part of that is simply because there's no conventions right now to go and apply well, these ones are like 20-page issues, because I was like, if I'm doing it as a volume, I might as well do it as a 5-act book,
perfect.
right?
20 pages per act. You can sit down and get the arcs going.
Right. Yeah. Whereas the first book was sort of like, I don't know where I'm going with this, so let's just figure it out. I think if conventions, if I was still going to conventions and things, I would probably have like the photocopy version available. But if people are looking for a little sneak peek, there might be something on Instagram shortly.
Perfect.
Leading up to its release, there may be a few here's maybe like the first couple pages to keep you interested, or something like that.
Yeah, sure. We'll have to make sure we send your way to Instagram.
Yeah. Chris Barnes Art with underscores. Chris_Barnes_art on Instagram.
Absolutely perfect. In that case, I think I've got my last 2-3 questions for you. So one, what is it that you are reading now? Not particularly, doesn't have to be comics, but it sounds like you read a lot of comics. What is it that you're reading?
So for comics, I'm actually just now rereading my Flash books that Francis Manapul drew. Yes. And Brian, I don't know how to say Brian Butticello's last name. I've seen it in print. I don't know how to say it out loud. It looks Italian.
We'll put it up.
Yeah. I'm reading their Flash books. That series of books made me a Flash fan. Like, I was like, the Flash, whatever. And then I knew 52. Picked up books. Yeah. Oh my god! Like, Flash is great, and then the TV series came and it's great. So I'm reading that. I don't have much on the go. Well, I read Group of Seven recently. I don't really have a weekly pull list.
Yeah.
So there's that. But then I drive a bit for work to get to my work, and so I'm listening to on Audible. Expeditionary Force by R.C. Bray reads it. I couldn't tell you who writes it. Sorry,
we'll
writer.
Pull it all up. It's all good.
It's a 10 series. I think there's 10 books in this series. I'm on like book 8. It's a good. Yeah, it's pretty good. Pretty good. I've listened to like 8 books.
I was gonna say, yeah, you've gone through 8 books. That's a good series.
Yeah, so that's pretty fun. So that's sort of what, and it's like a space exploration and battles and stuff. So it's a good series. I'm trying not to feed off of it too much. I'm sure there's little bits in these latest issues that are from there, but I'm trying, actively trying not to steal ideas.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's always something interesting that I think about when I'm reading something from, you know, the artists and writers that I really like, is that this seems kind of similar to this. Did you also read that and enjoy that, or where do you draw that line, or how do you enjoy the medium or enjoy whatever it is that you're enjoying without taking from it? And is that okay to take from it? It's that could be a whole long conversation.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's some things I'm like, oh, I want to put that in my book. Like I read Joyride, like I said, from Boom Studios, Marcus Toe, and there's a couple like, oh, I should use something similar to that. This character needs to say this thing too, because that's super cool. But I try not to lift too much directly.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think I've kind of covered everything on my end, question-wise. Just for the viewers out there again, when it comes to contacting you, finding you, where can they find you, and how can they get your book?
Yeah, sure. So on Instagram, I'm Chris_Barnes_art. And that Instagram is sort of where my art lives. If you're looking for me on Instagram, looking for art stuff from me, there's also a Facebook page, facebook.com/ChrisBarnesArt without the underscores. And then you can find my book. Either get in touch with me on either of those platforms, and I can get you a copy of my book. There'll be a signature on it, probably a drawing inside. And then if you don't want to talk to me and you just want to read my book, you can go to Amazon.ca or .com, depending on where you are, or .jp or whatever, and you search for Omega Squad Chris Barnes. It'll come up, and I super appreciate you all who buy it, and if you get it from me directly, there's bonuses, so that's good too.
Beautiful. Well, Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me about your book. Congrats on finishing it, and I look forward to Volume 2. And yeah, I do hope you have a great rest of your day.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me on. It was super great.
All right. Have a good one.
All right. You too. Thanks.
Bye.